My name is Sabrina, and at 37, I'm about to tell you a story that changed everything I believed about family bonds. Growing up, our family wasn't rich, but we got by. Mom retired early due to health issues, while Dad continued working, looking forward to his retirement in 2 years. Then there's my sister Sheila, 12 years younger than me, and the apple of our parents' eyes. After college, I landed a decent job and moved in with my boyfriend, Mark. He's pragmatic, just like me, which is probably why we clicked so well. While Sheila was finishing college, I was already establishing my career and thinking about our family's future. You know, you don't have to keep supporting them, Mark would say occasionally, watching me transfer money to my parents' account. They're adults too. I'd always shake my head and respond, look, I'm no kids, and they need help. Their house is falling apart, and I want them to have something better for their retirement. The house, that old, crumbling 2-story building where I grew up, was becoming a serious concern. Last winter, I brought in some contractors to assess the damage. I still remember the head contractor's face as he walked through each room, shaking his head. "Ma'am, fixing this would cost more than building new," he said, pointing at the extensive water damage and structural issues. "You'd be throwing good money after bad." That's when I made a decision that seemed perfectly logical at the time. I opened a joint savings account with my parents, planning to help them buy a new house. The goal was clear: save $200,000, combine it with the sale of their old house, and get them something safe and comfortable for their retirement years. Every month, I'd deposit a substantial portion of my salary into that joint account, watching the balance grow steadily. $50,000. $100,000. Each milestone felt like a step closer to giving my parents the security they deserved. Mark and I lived modestly, postponing our own dreams of buying a house, but I didn't mind. Family comes first, right? It was a typical Sunday family dinner until Sheila cleared her throat and grabbed everyone's attention. I remember every detail of that evening: the smell of Mom's pot roast, the sound of rain against the windows, and the way my sister's eyes sparkled with excitement. "Thomas and I are getting married," she announced, holding up her left hand to show off an enormous diamond ring that probably cost more than my annual salary. Mom jumped up from her chair, rushing to hug Sheila, while Dad beamed with pride. I was happy too, genuinely happy. Thomas came from a good family, treated my sister well, and they seemed perfect together. But then came the bombshell that would change everything. "I planned it all out," Sheila continued, pulling out her phone to show a Pinterest board full of elaborate wedding ideas. "The venue, the flowers, the dress, everything. It'll cost about $300,000. I choked on my water. $300,000, I sputtered, certain I'd heard wrong. "Sheila, that's insane." The room grew quiet. Mom and Dad exchanged uncomfortable glances, while Sheila looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before, a mixture of entitlement and determination. "Thomas offered to do something smaller," she said, waving her hand dismissively. "Just family and close friends. But I told him I could handle the cost myself. I want to show his family that we're just as good as they are." "And exactly how are you planning to pay for this?" I asked, though something in my gut already knew the answer. Sheila smiled sweetly. "You're going to help me, of course. You've always helped family." The silence that followed was deafening. I looked at my parents, expecting them to say something, anything, to bring my sister back to reality. Instead, Mom was staring at her plate while Dad suddenly became very interested in his coffee. "I can give you $20,000 for the wedding," I said carefully, "and another $10,000 as a wedding gift." "That's already a lot of money, Sheila." My sister's face darkened. "That's ridiculous, Sabrina, you have way more than that. This is my one chance to have my dream wedding. To show Thomas's family that I'm not some poor girl they need to look down on." I turned to our parents, desperation in my voice. "Mom, Dad, please tell her this is crazy. Tell her she doesn't need to prove anything to anyone." What Mom said next felt like a knife to my heart. "Maybe Sheila has a point, honey. We've had to deny her so many things growing up." She deserves to have her special day. You're just jealous, Sheila spat. Jealous that I'm getting married first, jealous that Thomas's family has money, jealous that I'm going to have the wedding you never could. I could have a fancy wedding if I wanted to, I shot back. But unlike you, I understand the value of money. When Mark and I get married, we'll have a small ceremony and save our money for things that actually matter, like having children and building a future. God, you're so self-righteous. Sheila stood up too, her face red with anger. Always acting like you know what's best for everyone. You're just greedy and selfish. I grabbed my purse and headed for the door, tears stinging my eyes. I'm greedy? I've been giving away half my salary to help our parents, while you've been planning ways to spend money that isn't even yours. As I stormed out into the rain, I heard Mom calling after me, but I didn't turn back. I drove home in a daze, trying to convince myself that this was just a bad dream, that my sister would come to her senses once she calmed down. 2 weeks after the disastrous dinner, I was sitting at my desk during lunch break, doing my usual monthly budget review. Mark and I were planning to grab dinner after work, and I wanted to make sure I had enough set aside after making my regular deposit to my parents' account. I logged into online banking, clicked on the joint account, and felt my heart stop. The balance read $0. My hands were shaking as I clicked on the transaction history. There it was, a single withdrawal of $150,000, made just 3 days ago. I left work early, not even bothering to explain to my boss why I looked like I'd seen a ghost. The drive to my parents' house was a blur. I still remember gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white, trying to think of any explanation other than the obvious one. When I pulled up to their house, both their cars were in the driveway. I didn't even knock, just used my old key and burst in. "Where's the money?" I demanded, finding them both in the kitchen. "What happened to the $150,000 in the account?" Mom wouldn't meet my eyes. Dad suddenly became very interested in his coffee cup, just like at that dinner 2 weeks ago. "We don't know what you're talking about, honey," Mom said quietly. "Don't lie to me," I was shouting now, pulling out my phone to show them the bank statement. "Someone withdrew all the money 3 days ago. I'm calling the police right now." "No," Mom reached for my phone. "Don't call the police," I took it. "Sheila needed it for the wedding, she's marrying into a good family. We couldn't let her have a small wedding, what would they think?" I laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. What would they think? They'd think she's marrying their son because she loves him, not because she's trying to buy their approval with my money. "It's going to be fine," Mom tried to soothe me. "Sheila promised she'll help us buy a new house after the wedding. She'll be married to Thomas then, and they'll have plenty of money. She's already promised to send us money every month." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Are you listening to yourselves? You had $150,000 saved up for a new house. We only needed another $50,000, and you could have moved out of this death trap. Instead, you gave it all away for a party, a one-day event. "It's not just a party," Dad defended. "It's an investment in Sheila's future. You don't understand. Once she's married to Thomas." I looked around the kitchen, at the cracking walls, the sagging ceiling, the water stains in the corners. All fixable problems that now would never be fixed, because my parents had chosen a fantasy over reality. "You know what?" I said, suddenly feeling very tired. "You're right, I don't understand. And I don't want to understand. You've made your choice, now you can live with it." That night, I barely slept. Mark held me while I cried, then helped me make a list of what needed to be done. First thing in the morning, I closed the joint account and opened a new one in just my name. Then I called Sheila. She answered on the 4th ring, sounding irritatingly cheerful. "Oh, hi, Sabrina. I was just looking at wedding venues. There's this amazing place." "Cut the crap, Sheila," I interrupted. "I know what you did, I know about the money." There was a pause, then her voice turned cold. "If Mom and Dad chose to give me the money, that's their decision. You're not in charge of them. Give it back, I said through gritted teeth. Give it back now, or I swear to God, Sheila. Or what? She challenged. You'll call the police? Go ahead, Mom withdrew it legally. And honestly, Sabrina, you should be happy for me. This is my dream wedding. Your dream wedding? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. What about Mom and Dad's dream of having a safe place to live? Did you even think about that? Oh, please, Sheila scoffed. They'll be fine. Once I'm married to Thomas, I'll buy them whatever they need. His family has connections, we can probably get them a house for way less than market value. I laughed bitterly. You really believe that, don't you? That you'll marry into money and all your problems will be solved? What did you tell Thomas about where this money came from? There was a telling silence on the other end. He doesn't know, does he? I pressed. You told him you had the money yourself. Does he know you stole it from our parents' house fund? I didn't steal anything, Sheila exploded. You know what? Don't come to the wedding, I don't want you there anyway. You'll probably just try to ruin it with your jealousy and your holier-than-thou attitude. Those last words were dripping with contempt. I thought of all the times I'd helped her, the college textbooks I'd bought, the rent I'd helped her with when she was between jobs, the countless small kindnesses she'd apparently forgotten. You know what the difference is between us, Sheila? I said quietly. I don't need a $300,000 wedding to prove my worth to anyone. And when I do get married, I'll be able to look my husband in the eye knowing I didn't lie to him about money. Whatever, she muttered. I have a meeting with the florist, don't call me again. The line went dead. I sat there for a long time, staring at my phone, thinking about all the times I'd defended Sheila to Mark when he said she was spoiled. All the times I'd made excuses for her behavior, saying she was just young and would grow out of it. Mark found me still sitting there an hour later when he came home from work. Did you talk to her? He asked gently. I nodded. She spent it on deposits and bookings that can't be refunded. And your parents? They're convinced she'll take care of them after the wedding, I laughed, but it came out more like a sob. They really believe she'll buy them a house with her rich husband's money. Mark sat down next to me. What do you want to do? Nothing, I said, surprising myself with how calm I felt. There's nothing to do. They made their choice, all three of them, now they get to live with it. In the months that followed the confrontation, I threw myself into work and planning my own future with Mark. We found a modest house we loved and started saving for a down payment. News about Sheila's wedding preparations reached me through my Aunt Sarah, Mom's sister, who still kept in touch with both sides of our fractured family. You wouldn't believe the excess, Aunt Sarah told me over coffee one afternoon. The dress alone cost $30,000. She's having doves released during the ceremony, and there's going to be a 5-tier cake covered in real gold leaf. A week before Sheila's wedding, I got an unexpected visit at work. It was Thomas, my soon-to-be brother-in-law, looking uncomfortable in his expensive suit. Can we talk? He asked, hovering by my desk. I just found out about the money. About where it really came from. My heart skipped a beat. Oh? My parents' accountant was helping us review our finances before the wedding, he explained. He noticed some large deposits in Sheila's account and asked about their source. She broke down and told me everything. I leaned back in my chair, waiting. I had no idea, he continued. She told me she'd been saving for years for her dream wedding. I offered to have a smaller celebration, but she insisted she could handle it. If I'd known she took your parents' house money. As he left my office, I felt a mix of emotions I couldn't quite sort out. Part of me wanted to warn him about what he was getting into, about how Sheila had been spoiled and entitled since childhood. But another part of me knew he needed to make his own decisions. The day of Sheila's wedding arrived, a perfect sunny Saturday in June. I saw the photos on social media later, the release of white doves, the horse-drawn carriage, the champagne fountain, and the fireworks display. Everything was exactly as Sheila had dreamed, paid for with money that should have given our parents a safe place to live. That night, I lay awake thinking about my parents sitting at that lavish wedding, surrounded by wealth and excess, knowing they'd go home to a house that was literally falling down around them. 6 months after the wedding, my phone rang. It was my parents' number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Sabrina?" Mom's voice sounded small and tired. "Everything's bad here. The house, it's getting worse. A pipe burst in the upstairs bathroom last week, and we can't afford to fix it properly. Your father had to shut off the water to that whole floor." I stayed silent, waiting. "We tried calling Sheila," she continued. "She promised she'd help us after the wedding, but now she's saying they're having cash flow problems. Something about Thomas's family's business having a bad quarter." "What do you want from me, Mom?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. "We made a mistake," she whispered. "We know that now." "The plaster that fell on your father's head? He had to get 3 stitches. The doctor said we were lucky it wasn't worse." I closed my eyes, remembering the contractor's warnings from 2 years ago. "Have you tried calling Sheila again?" Mom's bitter laugh surprised me. "She and Thomas are barely speaking to each other. They came back from their honeymoon fighting about money. Apparently, she maxed out their joint credit cards in the Maldives. Thomas's parents got involved, and, well, it's not good." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, and I was surprised to realize I meant it. Not because I felt sorry for Sheila, but because our parents had sacrificed their future for her fairy tale, and now even that was falling apart. Could you maybe help us?" Mom's voice cracked. "Just with the pipe? We can't use the upstairs bathroom at all, and your father's back is hurting from having to go up and down the stairs to use the downstairs one at night." I thought about the house Mark and I were saving for, about the wedding we were planning. "I can't, Mom, I'm not in a position to help anymore. You need to talk to Sheila." After I hung up, I called Aunt Sarah. She filled me in on what Mom hadn't told me. Sheila and Thomas were living in a luxury apartment his parents had bought them as a wedding gift, but their marriage was already showing serious cracks. Thomas had discovered Sheila had taken out several personal loans to pay for additional wedding expenses beyond the money she'd taken from our parents. Meanwhile, Dad was still working despite being past retirement age, and Mom had started looking for part-time work. They'd had to close off the entire upper floor of the house due to water damage and mold concerns. "Your father's too proud to ask for help," Aunt Sarah told me. "But Sarah, that house is becoming dangerous. The structural damage from the water leak is spreading. They need to either fix it or move out, but they can't afford either option." I remembered standing in that house 2 years ago with the contractors, planning how to help my parents move somewhere safe. If only they'd waited. If only they'd trusted me instead of Sheila's empty promises. Mark found me in our home office that evening, looking at pictures of my parents' house from before all this started. "You're thinking about helping them, aren't you?" he asked. "No," I said firmly, "I can't. Even if I wanted to, we need our savings for our own house. I won't set myself on fire to keep them warm, especially after what they did." "But it's killing you to see them suffer," he observed. I turned to him, tears in my eyes. "Of course it is. They're my parents. But they chose this, they chose Sheila's one-day fantasy over their own future. They chose to believe her empty promises over my real help. And now they're living with those choices." That night, I dreamed about the old house. In my dream, I was a child again, sitting in my bedroom while rain pattered against the window. But when I looked up, the ceiling was cracking, water was dripping down, and no matter how many buckets I put out, I couldn't catch all the drops. 2 years after the wedding, Aunt Sarah called me at work. Her voice was tight with tension. "Sheila and Thomas are getting divorced," she said without preamble. "She's moving back in with your parents." The final straw was when Thomas discovered she'd been hiding mail from his parents, credit card bills, overdue notices. She'd been secretly using their joint cards for months, even after he cut her off from them. His parents got involved, and well, the prenup is being enforced. "So she gets nothing?" Less than nothing, Aunt Sarah corrected. She's got about $50,000 in personal debt from the wedding loans, plus all the credit card debt she racked up trying to keep up appearances. Thomas's family is washing their hands of her completely. I thought about that $300,000 wedding, the doves, the gold leaf cake, the fireworks. All that money, my parents' future, gone up in smoke for a marriage that lasted barely 2 years. I closed my eyes, remembering the contractor's warnings from 3 years ago. If we'd stuck to the original plan, my parents would be in a new house by now. Instead, they were working themselves to exhaustion in their 70s, living in half a condemned house, and about to take in their unemployed, debt-ridden daughter. That evening, I drove past my parents' house, not stopping, just looking. Sheila's car was already in the driveway, a luxury model she clearly couldn't afford anymore. Through the windows, I could see lights on downstairs, shadows moving. My sister, back in our childhood home, but not the way any of us had imagined. The next day, I ran into Sheila at the grocery store where Mom worked. She looked different, the designer clothes and perfect manicure were gone, replaced by jeans and chipped nail polish. She saw me but quickly turned away, pushing her cart down another aisle. Today, I'm getting married. As I stand in front of the mirror in my simple white dress, nothing like Sheila's $30,000 designer gown, I think about how different my path has been from my sister's. Mark and I are having our ceremony at the courthouse, with only Aunt Sarah and his immediate family present. Afterward, we'll have dinner at our favorite restaurant. The whole thing will cost less than what Sheila spent on her wedding flowers alone. Are you sure you don't want to invite them? Mark asked last night, meaning my parents and Sheila. I shook my head. They made their choice 3 years ago. I'm making mine now. The last update I got from Aunt Sarah painted a grim picture. The house was officially condemned last month. My parents had to move into a small 2-bedroom apartment with Sheila, using what little savings they had left for the security deposit. Mom is still working at the grocery store, Dad finally had to retire due to health issues, and Sheila is working as a waitress, trying to pay off her mountain of debt. Your mother asks about you, Aunt Sarah told me recently. She keeps the announcement of your courthouse wedding on her nightstand. I'd sent the announcement through Aunt Sarah, not directly to them. It wasn't an invitation, just a notification that I was getting married. Mom had tried to call after receiving it, but I let it go to voicemail. Some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt. They understand now, Aunt Sarah said. They know they made a terrible mistake. Your father says it's the biggest regret of his life, choosing one daughter's fantasy over the other daughter's reality. But understanding doesn't change anything. It doesn't bring back the $150,000 they gave away. It doesn't repair their condemned house. It doesn't erase the fact that they betrayed my trust in the worst possible way. Sheila is still living with them, working double shifts to make minimum payments on her wedding debt. The luxury apartment, designer clothes, and expensive car are all gone. Sometimes she posts on social media about learning life lessons and the true meaning of family, but I've muted her accounts. Her words ring hollow after everything that's happened. Yesterday, a package arrived from my parents, a wedding gift. I almost sent it back unopened, but curiosity got the better of me. Inside was Mom's old pearl necklace, the only valuable thing she had left, with a note, "We should have trusted you. We should have seen who you really were, the responsible one, the caring one, the one who tried to give us a real future instead of a one-day dream. We're so sorry. We love you." I put the necklace back in its box. Maybe someday I'll wear it, but not today. Today, I'm wearing the simple silver pendant Mark gave me on our first anniversary. It's not expensive or flashy, but it's real, like our love, like our plans, like our future. After the ceremony, Mark and I will go home to the house we finally saved up enough to buy. It's nothing fancy, a modest 3-bedroom in a quiet neighborhood. But it's ours, built on careful planning and honest work, not dreams and schemes. Ready? Mark asks, poking his head into the room. I take one last look in the mirror. My dress is simple, my makeup minimal, my flowers picked up from the local florist this morning. Nothing like Sheila's extravaganza. But I'm marrying a man I love, surrounded by people I trust, starting a life based on reality instead of fantasy. Ready, I say, and I mean it. As we drive to the courthouse, I think about the lessons I've learned from all this. About how some people will drain you dry if you let them. About how parents can love their children too much in all the wrong ways. About how a single bad decision can destroy decades of trust and hard work. But I've also learned about strength, my own strength. About setting boundaries, about choosing reality over fantasy, about building a life on solid ground instead of shifting sand.